Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education, the most salubrious committee in the Nevada State Legislature. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members De Silva, Dahlia, DeLong, Flanagan, Hanson, Hardy, Hunt, Koenig, LaRue Hatch, Mosca, and Chair, Orentlicker, and Chair Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. For just a moment, I was concerned that I was not actually chairing this committee and was about to head on my way and enjoy my day. Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education, and welcome to the audience here in Carson City and those of us joining us in a very packed room in Las Vegas, and those listening over YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. A couple housekeeping items. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please make sure you sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, spell your name, and state your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Handouts should be provided to our committee staff. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we do not agree over today's very, very contentious topics. The committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the hearing on AB 164, which revises provisions relating to the account for student indemnification. And I think this might be one of the first times I've ever seen Assemblymember O'Neill in our most salubrious committee in education. So welcome, salutations.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm not very well educated. As I was saying earlier, it only took me 15 years to get through college, which my intern with me is doing it in 3. So I will be back to the serious side. Thank you, Chair, to the 4th hardest working after Ways, after my Commerce and Labor and after Revenue. We do have education. Hardest working committee and members of the committee. I'm Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill, representing Assembly District 40, which includes all of Carson City, all of Story County, and the eastern side of Washoe County up to the city of Sparks limits. I'm also joined today by Kelly Huist and Commissioner Randy Kerner, Dr. Randy Kerner. They're in Las Vegas and will be assisting me in presenting this bill, along with, as I said, my intern, Jared Delatorre, on this bill, and he'll be able to answer most of the questions for you. He's looking forward, actually, to this. And AB 164 which will revise provisions relating to the account for student indemnification dealing with post-secondary institutions. To give you a little background before I go through the bill itself, the account for student indemnification was created in 1995 and it is administered by the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. The Commission oversees post-secondary education institutions, including private academy, businesses, professional, technical, and vocational schools in the state of Nevada. The Commission uses the account for student indemnification to compensate students who have been harmed as a result of a licensed institution closing for any unexpected reason, such as bankruptcy, and has recently happened in the past. It is basically, and in short, the easiest way for me to describe, it's an insurance policy for the student, protecting them from their unpaid or unused part of their tuitions. Each student of an institution covered by the account pays a one-time fee of $5 for every time they initially enroll. So a student pays $5 and that's it for them. The institution transmits the funds to the Commission each quarter for credit to the account. When the account balances, the current balance is limited to $250,000. The Commission notifies the institutions that they are not required to pay the fee until the balance falls again below that threshold of $250,000. Since its founding in 1995, as we all are aware of, costs have increased dramatically. Due to these inflationary pressures, we are asking to raise the cap on the account for student indemnification so we can protect students' investments if the institution they are attending unexpectedly closes its door from the current $250,000 to $750,000. Going through the bill itself, if I may, I'll try to do it as quickly and succinctly as possible because I know there's many pages to it and sections. Forget in section 1, sub 2, it's removing the 250 cap and inserting $750,000. It would become effective July 1st of 2025. Now, with your permission, Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Quest and Commissioner Dr. Kerner in Las Vegas to give a little more summary and explanation history on this bill.
Thank you. Please proceed in Las Vegas.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. As Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill has mentioned, my name is Dr. Randy Kerner. I actually previously served the Assembly and on this very committee. I've also served in Ways and Means and was chair of the Committee on Commerce and Labor. So it's nice to feel like I'm home again, you know. Currently, I serve as a commissioner on the Commission of Post-Secondary Education. One thing that PK may not have mentioned, but this is private post-secondary education opportunities and does not include, for example, UNR, UNLV, and so on. We are by the Nevada Legislature, we're the group that's responsible for being the licensing authority and the oversight of post-secondary education. And we have approximately 175 programs which offer a wide range of educational opportunities. These programs range from vocational schools such as welding school or dog grooming certifications or printing schools to more traditional colleges for nursing, and all of us are familiar with Toro and Roseman. So I'm testifying today in favor of AB 146, and with me is Kelly Wiest, who is a longtime administrator of the commission, and she will be offering a PowerPoint presentation and certainly is available for your questions. I think that Assemblyman O'Neill has summarized it pretty well. The indemnification fund is really a safeguard for students. It was established 30 years ago, and we have seen over time that the $250,000 limit has been a problem when schools have closed for any number of reasons: COVID, bankruptcy, lack of enrollment, recession, whatever. The one thing that he did not mention is that the fund is solely for student protection. The fund is not state money, and the state cannot access or use it, take the money from the fund. So obviously, since we wish to make no change in the fee, it will take us several seasons of new students coming on board to reach the $750,000 limit, should the commission approve and the assembly vote in favor. We think this is a friendly amendment. Never say this because I was in the assembly. Never say it's a no-brainer, but we'll see what you think. It's your call. Thank you very much. And with this, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Wiest.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Kelly Wiest, Kellywuest, and I'm the administrator of the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. So Assemblyman O'Neill really covered my first slide very well. This is a fund that has been in existence since 1995. It has not increased or changed at all in that time frame. And unfortunately, the landscape of education, the cost of education has been changing over time. So what kind of brought us to this point was a closure that happened in Northern Nevada in 2024. It was the Career College in Northern Nevada, which had been in existence since 1980. They closed without any prior notice, impacting 226 students. As a college, when a college closes, there is federal monies that are involved in part of that closure, and we're not responsible for that. The fund is only for a student, a parent, a grandparent, a guardian who actually paid monies out of pocket for the education. So they are out that money. They cannot recoup those costs without this fund. In this specific closure, we ended up with $530,000 indemnification claims. There was 50 students filed. I believe there was more that were eligible, but for small amounts, and I cannot attest to why they did not ask for a refund. The claims did range from as much as $30,568 to as low as $1,092. Right now, we have 10 students that are waiting to receive their identification payment, so it's in our payment process. And then, I'm sorry, we have 7 in the process, and there's 10 that are waiting for funds to be available in the current account to be paid. We did start collecting the $5 fee starting July 1 of 2024, and my estimation, it will take 2 years from this current quarter, which will be the first quarter of 2026, for it to reach $250,000. And as talked about before, it'll be approximately 4 years if you increase it to $750,000. And how I know this is we do projections. We know what new student enrollment looks like. It's reported to us on a quarterly basis. So we are able to do forecasting, which you should have when you see our budget. That tells how many new students that we're going to see in Nevada. The next slide is our rationale for doing this. It is solely to protect students, to protect their families from monies they pay out of pocket. There's been no increase. And when I look back, and I can only go back through 2020 to get a good subset, the vocational programs increased from 35% to 125%. And institutions of higher learning, which is a college or university, ranged from 600 to 300% increase. Some of our other things that have changed in the landscape, the Department of Ed has changed some of the requirements for the 90-10 rule, and that is how much federal financial aid can one institution get on behalf of students. That fund used to be just those federal dollars that were connected to Title IV. That has now been including other things like WIOA funds, VA funds, and the like. So they now have to go and procure more cash pays. So our other big changes are there's more distance education, more hybrid modalities, and so they're no longer set by the brick and mortar limitations that they used to have when everyone sat in a seat and was in a building. So we're seeing that, that major change that started really amplifying during COVID, and it's held. Very few institutions have gone back to purely brick and mortar. Hybrid is a very common modality now. And then I think one of the biggest things is we've seen a change in who is licensed. So we no longer see a lot of liberal arts or general education type programs. Most of private post-secondary is focusing on career and technical education. So you see a lot of nursing programs and medical, everything from HVAC to jewelry making. And we most recently had Roseman University go through a long, arduous process to offer an MD. So we have changed the landscape of education to meet the needs of the workforce of Nevada. And I think because of that, this is why you would want to make this change. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions you may have about how we administer indemnification.
Thank you. Go ahead, Assembly Member.
Chair, thank you. P.K. O'Neill for the record, that I remembered. I do not have an amendment. It's just, I think there may have been some miscommunication or statement on that. The bill stands as it is, and we are ready now for any questions that you and this esteemed committee may have.
Thank you, Assemblymember, and thank you so much for your presentation, and for taking the time to meet with me ahead of time, and for recognizing, obviously, that this is the hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature. I really do appreciate it. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite members for any questions. Assemblymember Mosca.
Thank you so much, Chair, and great to see you in this committee. I may have missed it, but I just wanted to know how many times has it happened? So it makes sense that it happened in Northern Nevada recently, but in our Nevada history, how many times?
Kelly Weiss for the record. I can speak to my tenure. It's happened, we've had 5 different events in the last 10 years. There was 2 colleges that were involved in my very first event. So there was actually 6 closures where we really had to dip into indemnification. So, there, a lot of times we are able to teach out, we are able to do transfer agreements, but these are the cases which we cannot. So there really isn't an option but to refund the student.
Thank you so much. That's helpful to
this is-
see how much the problem
Yeah,
is. Just my other question was then on that, were we able to pay out all of the requests, or is this an example where we would be able to do this now because of the policy?
If you're speaking about the most recent one, we are actually, we have students that are waiting to be paid. They're waiting in line for the next, the person who finished their paperwork first is first in, first out. Every quarter, we collect part of this fee. It is immediately transferred over to the fund, and as we have enough to pay the next claim, that person is paid. For the other closures, yes, we were able to pay all the students out in those claims over time.
Assemblymember DeLong.
Chairman, you give me one moment, please. I have some information along with Assemblywoman or Assemblymember Mosca's question that may be of interest to you on what those payments look like.
Yes, please proceed.
Chair PK, or Assemblymember PK O'Neill, for the record, part of your question, I appreciated, Assemblymember Mosca, and just tangentially some information on that. When the Northern Nevada school closed and applied for indemnification, there were 125 of the school's 226 students would have been eligible for the recovery. And as Ms. Quest had said earlier, only about 50 of them actually applied. The other ones may have had other sources to recover the money from. At that time, the account is an interest-bearing account. It's compounded. At the time, there was actually more than the $250,000 in there. The interest had earned, so we were able to pay out, or I should say the commission was able to pay out the fees. So no student was truly harmed during that time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your salubrious presentation. It's much appreciated. I do have a question. How did you pick the 750,000? Why didn't you pick $1 million or $500,000 or $1.5 million?
Thank you for that outstanding question, Assemblymember DeLong. I truly appreciate such a in-depth, it goes beyond my abilities to almost answer that. So I will turn it over to Commissioner Dr. Kerner, since they brought forth this request for me to carry the bill. Dr. Kerner?
Thank you, Mr. Assemblyman. For the record, it's Randy Kerner. And I appreciate my successor, Mr. DeLong, asking the question. Basically, the tuitions have risen about threefold. And so we just kind of it's not very scientific. We just took the 250 and made it 750. We think that that'll be adequate to meet our current needs and as we go forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And Chair, if I may add to that, since I had time now to think, you've got to, the 750 protects all these, as an example, PK O'Neill for the record. As an example, Turo, their education, they have some tuitions for some of their highly technical medical fields. They're $90,000 plus. So if you had 100 students, if they close for some reason, you're right off the bat have a high liability. So that added to, as Dr. Kerner said, their scientific guessing at raising it, but with the interest bearing, it adds that protection for the students. And that's really, I want to stress, is what this is for, is protection for the students. And it's a serious bill. To the committee, I will tell you, some of you that don't know me, I may joke around a lot, but it is a serious issue that we're here for. And I do appreciate your time greatly on this. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Ortlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing the bill and for all the presentation. I'm wondering about, I have an informed consent kind of question. If we've set up this fund that we are sufficiently worried that these institutions will leave students in a lurch, are they warned? You are enrolling in an institution that the state thinks has a sufficient risk of going under, that we've set up this indemnification fund. Is that something students ought to know?
Thank you for the question. That is an excellent question. PK O'Neill for the record. And I think the best person to answer that would be Ms. Quest, since she's been involved in it for several years on that.
Kelly Weiss for the record. Information about student indemnification is included in every student catalog. So a student, when they enroll, must receive a catalog and an enrollment agreement that outlines all the parameters of how a post-secondary institution is required to operate in the state. So they get that information. They have the commission's information that must be conveyed to them. I think the media has done a really good job of letting people know that private post-secondary has some inherent risk to it. But it's available in the catalog. I could not tell you how many people actually do read that. And in that catalog, if they require the student to pay the $5 fee, it's actually outlined in the catalog and the enrollment agreement. So, and I will let you know that any institution that the Department of Education or an accrediting body has deemed at risk is required to notify students, is required to post it. However, we only have a certain portion of our institutions that are accredited. Many of them are unaccredited, so they are very small businesses. And a couple of years of a bad economy, COVID, can make it very hard to operate, and they don't operate on a big margin. So most of our private post-secondary institutions that are locally grown are just small businesses. So there is some inherent risk that they could close if the economy goes bad. So we have this protection in the catalog. Students, if they ask us any questions, their parents want to know, we are more than welcome to talk to them about the institutions. And we do have students that call and ask us if there's any warnings, if there's been any complaints on a school. So we're open to the public, doing their research, but we do put it available and make that available in the catalog, and it's actually in statute that they must do so.
Members, any other questions at this time? I don't see any. Thank you so much for that salubrious presentation. At this time, we'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jimmy Lau with Ferrari Reader Public Affairs, representing the Nevada Association of Career Colleges. We are the trade organization for schools that are licensed and regulated by the CPE. And we're obviously here in support of this bill today. I think the fee structure that was put in place in the cap in 1995 is obviously reflective of a much different time than what we're in right now. And this account is really to serve as a backup safety net for students. I think, unfortunately, we hear a lot about the bad examples that might exist in this industry, and not often do we hear about the good examples. There are a lot of schools out there working to create, high demand, high need workers for our workforce, like nurses. Is probably a great example. I think the Assemblyman also mentioned some of the other schools that we're working with, pharmacists and doctors. And so we want to make sure as an industry and as the good actors in the industry that we are supporting this policy to ensure that students who may not be in those types of programs are protected if necessary. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Members, Mr. Lau has salubriously opened himself up to questions. Are there any questions at this time? It doesn't appear there are any. Thank you so much for your testimony. I don't see anybody in. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Lucia Maloney, LuciaMaloney. Thank you for the time to comment in support of this bill. I'm a Carson City resident and I'm a parent, and I think there was a discussion about risk. And as parents, we want to make sure that if we're investing in post-secondary education and trade schools, which are wonderful, that we want to have that risk covered. And so this bill seems like common sense to me, and I support it for the reasons discussed. Thank you.
I don't see anybody else in the room in Las Vegas, so I will go ahead and go to the phones. AVH, is there anyone on the phones wishing to testify in support of this piece of legislation?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 164, please press star 9 to join the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 724, please press star 6 to unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Thomas, Thomas, Kenny, Kenny, for the record. I am the chair of the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. Thank you all for the time. I apologize I was not able to make it over to the legislative building in person. I, too, wanted to chime in favor of the bill in question. I think that the folks who have already spoken to this have done a really great job illuminating all of the points that we as a commission discussed before this went through the process to get here today. I think that it is important that we, again, accommodate the inflation that has occurred over the last 30 years. And so in that sense, it feels fairly straightforward for why adjusting that would be appropriate. I do also think that in general, this sort of account remains just as important as it was 30 years ago. There have been other protections that were put in place in terms of requiring surety bonds of schools that add a layer of protection. But this just gives the commission a little bit more bandwidth to make sure that if something does happen, which although it is not typical or common, can happen on occasion in extraordinary circumstances, that students are not waiting for extended periods of time in order to get the wrong corrected. And so this is something that I think would be wonderful. And with that, I will pause in case there are any questions for me.
Members, are there any questions for the chair? I don't believe there are any. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair, there are no additional callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to opposition. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 164? I don't see any here in Carson City, and I do not see any in Las Vegas. ABH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 164?
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide testimony at this time.
I apologize. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to neutral. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 164? I don't see any in Carson, and I do not see any in Las Vegas. ABH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 164?
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the Assembly member to give any salubriously closing remarks.
For the record, PK O'Neill. Chair, I've got to tell you, there is more jocularity in this committee than I've experienced in several other committees. So I want to thank you for that. The attitude here is outstanding. Speaking of 164 specifically, though, I appreciate your time, your consideration, and I really do urge you to consider and move this bill onto the floor so we can get it into law. Thank you very much. If you do have any questions, I am always available to discuss them offline also. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members.
Thank you. And once again, thank you to those of you in Las Vegas that made the extra time to meet with me ahead of this time. So with that, we will jocularly close the hearing on AB 164, and we will salubriously open the hearing on AB 365, which eliminates provisions requiring the University of Nevada, Reno, GOPAC, School of Medicine to establish a program relating to the medical use of cannabis. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, and hopefully we can make this one just as much fun. All right, so thank you, Chair Torres Fawcett, Vice Chair De Silva, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. My name is Sheila Bray from the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm here to present information on Assembly Bill 365, which is a cleanup bill related to the evaluation and research of medical use of cannabis. Currently, the University of Nevada, Reno School of Medicine, it was required to prepare and present a quarterly report to the Interim Finance Council on the research and evaluation of medical cannabis within the school. This statute was added as part of Assembly Bill 453 in the 2001 legislative session by then Assemblywoman Chris G. UNR Med has not and is not conducting any research on medical cannabis, and as such, UNR Med has asked for this cleanup bill to repeal areas of NRS 678 as noted in Section 2 of this bill. Those sections include 678C.700 through 730. Section 1 of Assembly Bill simply refers to eliminating NRS 67C.710 as referenced in the requested repeal Section 2 of this bill. Given that UNR Med has not conducted research on medical cannabis and is not planning to complete so in the near future, the repeal of these sections would eliminate an undue burden of preparing and presenting quarterly reports with no activity in which to report. With me today is Paul Hopman, Dean of the University of Nevada, Reno School of Medicine, for any specific questions that you may have. And this concludes our presentation. We stand for questions.
Thank you for joining us today. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite anyone with any questions. Assemblymember Lieberhatch, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully my question is relatively quick. I just wonder if we repeal this and if in the future you choose to engage in this research, will we have to come back and add you back into statute, or would you be allowed to do that without further changes?
For the record, Paul Hauptman, H-A-U-P-T-M-A-N, Dean at UNR Med. I would imagine that if we were to engage in research in the future in cannabis, that we would do it under strict guidelines, but I don't think we have to come back to the legislature for that. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? And could you clarify, and you might have mentioned this in your presentation, when you put this in, when was this put in statute originally, and what's changed since then?
Yes, Chair Fawcett. Sheila Bray from the University of Nevada, Reno, for the record. This was put into statute in 2001, so it's been 24 years of quarterly reporting, and that bill was AB 453.
Thank you. I appreciate that, especially because it seems like we've passed a number of laws that have to do with cannabis since then. So I think a lot here in the state of Nevada has changed, where perhaps this is not necessary anymore. And I do believe, I believe you all spoke with then Assembly Member Christie, then Assembly Member Christie, and I believe she was in support with this change too. Is that correct?
I can get back to you on that. Sheila Bray for the record.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Members, any additional questions? No, I think we're good. Thank you so much. That was rather salubrious. And thank you for joining us all the way from Reno, Dean, just for this hearing. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 365. I don't see anyone running to the table here in Carson City, and nor do I see anyone in the very packed room in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 365?
To testify in support for Assembly Bill 365, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go to opposition. I don't see anyone here in Carson City, nor do I see anyone in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 365?
Thank you, Chair. To provide testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 365, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, we do not have any callers choosing to testify at this time.
We'll go ahead and go to neutral. I don't see anyone here in Carson City, and I do not see anyone in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral?
If you would like to testify in neutral for AB 365, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, the public lines are open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the bill sponsors for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Sheila Bray for the record, University of Nevada, Reno. I just wanted to put on the record that I was able to confirm that we have spoken with former Assemblywoman Chris G., and she is supportive of this change.
And for the record, Paul Hauptman, Dean at UNR Med. We appreciate the support of the Assembly Committee, and just would like to highlight that our intent is to really focus on our areas of research excellence now in muscular dystrophy, infectious disease diagnostics and vaccine development, cardiac arrhythmias, smooth muscle biology, and soon cancer research. That's really where our focus will be going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for those closing remarks. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 365. Thank you for that very salubrious presentation. And we'll go ahead and open public comment, the last item on our agenda. As a reminder to members of the public, everyone that wishes to provide testimony may do so, and we'll have up to 2 minutes to provide that testimony. Please make sure that if you are wishing to give public comment, you please state and spell your name for the record. Thank you.
John Eppolito. There have been at least 3 data breaches affecting Nevada K-12 students. 2017, Edmodo had a massive data breach where the personal data of Nevada students, including their student ID numbers, was placed for sale on the dark web. 2019, Pearson Ames web data was breached affecting over 650,000 Nevada students. The data included names, birth dates, and student IDs. 2019, School Messenger, where directory information and student ID data was breached. In Nevada, it's the student ID that is used to track kids from pre-K to college, workforce, and or jail via Infinite Campus and Empower. Some call it cradle to grave. 2022, CCSD was the victim of a ransomware attack. They refused to pay, so as promised, the hackers published private student information, including social security numbers, student grades, and other private student information. 2023, a hacker went undetected in CCSD's computer system for a few months. The hacker asked the district for $100,000 to delete the student profiles they had saved. Again, the district refused. So, as promised, the hacker posted 200,000 student profiles, including student photos, birth dates, student numbers, student IDs, emails, language, race, ethnicity, household and outside household relationships, and contact information. There was at least one class action lawsuit. School districts always downplay these incidents. ProtectNevadaChildren.org.
Thank you. I do not see anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in public comment, and I do not see anyone in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Members, are there any comments from committee members before we adjourn? Thank you. I hope you have a salubrious rest of your day. I'm not sure that we have posted the agenda yet, but the agenda for Tuesday's meeting will be posted shortly. Seeing no further business before us, this committee is adjourned.